And here we are too.
How'd you beat us to it?
Yeah, how'd you beat us here? Must be waiting for us. No. Well, hello everybody out there on YouTube. All of our friends out there. Regular subscribers. Probably need to get rid of that light. Hold on. Let me move over here. How's that look?
Yeah,
better?
that helps. Yep.
All right. All right, we'll let a few people funnel in here as we get started. So, like the headline says, I'm going to be doing a live. I am going to be doing a live vise forging demonstration. So I'm going to be making one half of the vise this live stream. I'll be making the next half of the vise the second live stream, and then I'll be making the other components for the vise in further live streams from there. So, but hey everybody, so hello Not Only Wood, Graham Pepper, good to see you, good to have you all here. Yeah, Ryan Hildell, long time no chat, nice to see you, good to have you here. Fusion Russ, hi. SS Smithing, good to have you here. Hello Prescott Stoops, George Muse, hi. Yep, Not Only Wood, yep, I'm forging a vise. So that's what I'm going to be doing in this demonstration. Now, before you get your hopes up too much on it being a very large vise, I'm going to be forging what they call a frizzen vise, or a gunsmith's vise, or a lockmaker's vise, or clockmaker's vise. They go by a bunch of different names, but essentially it's a little handheld vise. And so it's got two halves. It essentially has all the same components as what a leg vise does. And so we can walk through all those, you know, individual pieces and steps together. And then you just translate that out to a much larger vise. You just use larger volumes of material, but all the steps in the forging are pretty much the same. So, Party Mafia, good to have you here.
Yeah, it's about 15 degrees here in Ohio.
Yeah, it's real cold here, so. Yeah, Party Mafia, I think you got the best excuse for not being here in a while, but we appreciate you tuning in regardless, and thank you for that. Hello, everybody. Everybody's coming up. Oh, Brett Jones, how you doing? Happy holidays to you. If we don't say hello to everybody, it's because you guys are coming in here, pouring in pretty good. So, but you know, hello to everybody. It's good to have you all here.
How tall?
So the vise that I am shooting for is going to be, like I said, it's going to be a handheld deal. So it's going to be probably about 4.5 to 5 inches. So that is 50, 100, 125 mil. There you go. 100 to 125 mil tall. Rough estimate. So it's going to be a small vise, and the jaws are probably only going to be maybe, they're probably only going to be roughly maybe 1.5 inches wide or so. So they're not going to be very wide at all. But once again, it's a frizzen vise is what I'm making. And like I said, everything else in this whole process can be translated to a much bigger vise, which I have plans on doing in 2018 here. So there's going to be a lot of really good videos coming up. I've got some big projects planned for that. So, while we get a few more people in here, now's a good time to share it up if you're going to share it up while I'm just jammering on here and saying hello to everybody. You know, thank you everybody for being here. Somebody had a birthday. Happy birthday.
Bo Bailey.
Happy birthday, Bo Bailey.
He said he took the day off and's been forging all day. So that's
hey,
cool.
That's a good day. That's a good day. Oh, a bad day of forging beats a good day of work any day. So, at least that's my efforts on it. So a real quick thing of housekeeping. I want to let everybody know that maybe didn't tune into the last live stream. I do have the power hammer plans available for my main shop hammer. I also have a video coming up in the upcoming weeks where I'm going to do a walk around of the power hammer and explain the different parts of my main shop power hammer now that I finally have the plans available on the website. We'll pull that out.
There we go. Blacksmithpdfs.com.
Yep.
I printed off the print off, so.
She printed it off there, so if you type that in, you'll get there.
Last time.
And then this power hammer is also offered in my plan bundles, which is a CD-ROM like this. So you get power hammer plan bundles. Also, just so everybody knows, there is about a 2-week delay right now between us getting them out, getting the plan bundles in the mail, getting all of our stuff done, getting everything burned to a disk, stuff like that. That does take extra time from our regular work that we do, so we're just trying to, so we try to catch up with everybody. But it's stated there on the website, just so you know. So if you're like, hey, it's been a couple weeks and I haven't received it yet, it's in the mail. You just shipped some out yesterday, didn't you?
Yep.
So anyway, so that's why everybody can know that there as well. So I guess that's the final plug for that.
Yeah.
Oh. All right. While everybody's here, we got the fire good and going here, or I'm going to hopefully keep it good and going. Now I'm going to take you over to my leg vise, and we're going to talk a little bit about the part I'm going to be forging today, and then we're going to go right into the fire and get to forging. So, but hey Bodie, good to have you here. Brian Hildell, oh yeah, the forge build. I have not gotten back to it yet. It's kind of been shelved because of how cold everything's been, and mixing up stuff like mixing up the thing like the refractory and stuff. It's best if it's in a warm environment, and I'm not going to do that inside my house. So it's probably going to have to wait till spring, unfortunately, now that time got away. But that's as much as I know about that. Anyways.
That happens sometimes.
Yeah, that happens anytime. So now we're going to go over to the vise real quick, and I'll have Jessica, if you guys have any questions that you need me to pause on, we will, but I'm going to show you some of the key components, and then get into it.
All right, sounds good.
Sound good, everybody?
Yep.
All right, let's move. I think everybody said okay. All right. We're going to flip you around. Yep, you're looking at nothing. All right. Sorry, ladies and gents. It's going to be bumpy. Yeah, wood stove build. That would be a great one to do in here. Okay, I don't know if that'll get you close enough or not, but I'll try to explain the best I can.
Let me zoom in a little more. There we go.
All right. I'm going to use my little teacher's wand here.
Beautiful.
Is it a beautiful teacher's wand?
Ought to be hot pink, though.
Yeah, it should be hot pink. That way it'll stand out. So, okay. Can everybody see?
Yep.
All right. So the main part, so the part that we're going to be forging today is the front jaw of the vise. We're going to be forging this jaw section and essentially this whole length here. So this whole portion is considered one piece. On much larger vices, this can be up to 3 to 5 pieces, depending on how they forge weld it together. On older bits and pieces, or they can all be one whole piece as well. Later vices were forged all in one piece with drop forging, etc., etc. So what we're going to take, since I'm essentially going to play the drop forge, we are going to forge the whole vise in one piece. This piece anyhow. Then what will come next is the back half of the vise. You have to have these two first in order for you to create the other various components on the vise for it all to fit together and work. So the first part that I'm going to forge will be this portion. So right here you have the jaw. Right down here you have the waist or the neck of the vise. This is the considered essentially a part of the screw box itself. The screw box is a whole separate piece, and I'll show you what that looks like. I'll wheel this out here. So this is the screw box, and then this is obviously the screw. So in our case, this is just going to be a thumb screw kind of thing right here to tighten stuff up, but it will still have a nut over here, or aka a screw box on this side in order to catch the screw to pull the two together. So going down from here, you have the leg of the vise. This is also considered the leg of the vise all the way down, which is considered like a leg vise. is the leg of the vise. This front part is still considered the leg of a vise. Then you have your hinge joint, your hinge plates or cheeks, and then you also have your spring here. So as you can see, there's going to be quite a bit to forge to come through this whole thing. And this part here is called the barbell. Well, questions?
Peter, yes, Peter L. says, what steel will you be using, Roy?
I will be using just a standard 1018. A standard 1018 or mild steel. Now you can use whatever you want. It's not really needed because these aren't high wear vices. You're not beating on these or anything. It's not really needed to do a high carbon steel, but you can if you want to. If you feel your must for whatever your particular purpose is. These are generally made out of a mild steel because it's not needed. The surface resistance, surface wear resistance is not needed. Well, any other questions?
Not only wood says, I would call the hole for the screw the eye of the vise.
You can, yep, you can call that the eye of the vise. Sure. That's what we'll call it, the eye.
Iron Greek says that's a lot of material to hammer.
Yeah, this here would be a lot of material to hammer, but basically we're going to be performing a lot of all this same technique here, just in a smaller format. So everything that you see here is going to be done in a smaller format, and then like I said, later in 2018, I'm going to be making a much larger post vise. So I took a class with Tom Latney making a small, like filer's vise. And it's essentially a small like leg vise or bench mounted vise like this, and it's actually a lot smaller than this is, and so I'm just kind of trying to gear myself up again to go back and work on it. But so we'll start with this and then maybe forge a similar type vise as a refresher course for myself, so this way I don't screw up the one I didn't complete in class, and then move on from there. So any questions?
No further questions at this point. Everybody's just welcoming Scott. He's dropping in a little bit late, but not too bad.
Yeah.
So we're just actually going over what the project is going to be.
Yep. So we're going to break this vise series. I'm going to do a whole series on it. And so we're going to break it down into its main components. We're going to do the front half, the back half, the screw box, the barbell, the spring, and then the hinge joint. So that's going to be a separate, and then we'll ornamentate the vise afterwards just because I want it to look pretty with some file work and some engraving.
Got to make it pretty.
Yeah, got to make it pretty. But those will be the main components. Now, since this is a handheld vise or a frizzen spring vise or whatever you want to call it, filer's vise, jeweler's vise, however you want to call it, it is not needing a bracket to hold it to something. A bracket, that would, on a large leg vise, that would be a whole separate forging in of itself. But that, compared to everything else, is actually the easy part. So.
All right, cool.
All right, good to go?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, let's get on it.
All right. Gabe Hunt, glad to have you on the channel. He said he just subbed yesterday.
Awesome, glad to have you.
All right, where would you like me facing, Roy? Do you want me towards the
You
anvil?
can aim it at the anvil, because we got to lay it out first.
Okay.
And foremost. And I got to get this thing back up and hot here.
Do you have a preference which side of the anvil?
No, just as long as I can see what I'm laying out here.
Okay. See here. Sounds like everybody's having it pretty cold, unless you're in Arizona. 62 degrees.
Okay. Alright, so the first step in making a vise, you want to make sure that you lay out both your jaws equally. You want to make sure you lay out both your jaws equally, and so we would definitely want to take some time to lay this project out here. Now, I'm going to approximate. I know there's guys who hate approximations, but that's what I'm going to do. That for the jaw section itself, I'm going to need approximate approximately about 2 inches of material, or 50 mil. Now that may turn out to be too much, but I'm going to make it the same on both sides of the vise. So this here, starting off size, is 5/8 inch square material, which I'm not sure. Somebody help me out in the comment section what that is in metric, since I don't have my head on me here.
Bump.
I'm going to drop things about 1,000 times today. Whatever 5/8 inch square is. So we need 2 inches of material for our first set down to create our actual jaws of the vise. Then we need approximately 1 inch of material, maybe just a fuzz more. We're going to go 1.25 inches of material. That's 25, what's that, 32 mil?
16 and 16?
No, 25 mil for 1 inch.
Mm-hmm.
And then 6 mil for quarter. Whatever that is. I don't do math.
Okay, everybody.
Good luck to you.
The first measurement everybody said was 16 millimeters. The very first.
Okay, 16 mil square is 5/8 square, and then 1.25 inches, whatever that is. You guys can help me out in the comment section below with that. Just somebody shout it out. The reason for the second set down, this is going to become the eye of the vise.
32 mil.
It's 32 mil. That's what I thought. Totally. I do math regular. So, anyways, so this here is what we're going to need for the eye of the vise, if you will. We'll call that, or the punched hole section of it. And then down here, we can approximately lay off. We don't need to right now, but it'll probably only take an additional 1 inch or 25 mil of material to create the actual hinge joint itself. Because this, as we forge our different sets downs, this is going to elongate quite a bit. So we're not going to worry about any of this extra bit here first, just both sides of our eye essentially. Both sides of the eye of the vise and where we need our initial set down is what we're going to worry about. Now, a key in doing this is to make sure, okay, when you're working with something like this, try to round up to the nearest number. Don't go getting weird with fractions, because then once you forget your fraction, whatever that fraction of an inch was, because you got really super critical on this, now your other side won't lay out right. Mm-hmm. So, you know, try to round up to the nearest whatever. You know, if it's real close, just go ahead. You know, if it's like 1 1/8, make it 1 1/4. It's something that's easy to remember. Sometimes you can't do that. You need it more accurate than that. But usually in forging, considering you're not a machine, I doubt you're going to get it perfect anyhow. So now that we got our 2 layout marks done, now we can begin to take and forge down our set downs. Any questions?
Goes in the cold forge, huh?
Yep. Any questions?
Alright, let me go back through here. Jeff Sandling, glad I finally caught a live demo. Roy, is there a way to identify the manufacturer of these vises? Mine is identical to yours with no markings.
Unless it's marked or stamped, I'm not a vise connoisseur. There are some people who know just by the general shape of the vise who's the manufacturer. I'm not too up on that myself, though, so I can't really help you. I don't know what mine is either. It's unmarked. All right. Where does the fire go?
Let's see here. Gregory B says, this is a hard project to do live. My hat's off to you, you guys.
Appreciate that. I'll say one thing about that. This is where, if you have not went through my fundamental series of blacksmithing and watched that whole series all the way through, especially the part where I showed hammer control or forging material basics. Let me grab the piece here. It's where I showed the, like, you know, forging accurately to dimension without having to take measurements. I don't know if everybody has seen that video. This is all clobbered up now, so it's not a good representation. But as long as you know how to divide material correctly, this is actually fairly simple. Now it has quite a bit of complexity to it because it has a bunch of offsets and a bunch of shoulders that you want to get right, but in of itself it is not actually that difficult because it's just creating shoulders, it's doing some spreading, it's doing some slitting and drifting, some punching, it's going to have some file work to it, some riveting.
Forging dimension, basically.
Yeah, forging dimension. So as long as you have, done well at studying up on fundamentals or really understanding the way the material moves under the handle, under the hammer, where it's going from, where it's going to, this is actually a fairly easy project. What makes it difficult is when you actually put everything together and like start fine-tuning and getting the fit to work. That's where it becomes very difficult, is in the final stages. First stages are easy as pie.
So Hunter Hawkins said, so it will be a post vise.
This is going to be a hand vise.
Hand vise.
It's something that you hold in your hand, and from what my original understanding is, these started out as frizzen vices, and it came from the gun making industry. It may have came from the clock making industry prior to that, but essentially a frizzen is a thing that holds the lock open on a flintlock rifle, if that makes sense. Or it holds it shut. There's a little camming action that it does, and it clicks, and it holds that shut, and then when the flint strikes it, bling, it flicks it open, if that makes sense. So that was meant to, so this way you could squeeze that and put it on the plate, or on the half plate of the gun stock, in order to allow that frizzen to put that together, essentially. So it would squeeze the frizzen spring, because they're very stout springs, or should be.
Let's see, J.G. Clark had asked if your quench take was frozen solid.
Mostly, yep, it's mostly solid.
Pretty much.
Alright, you may want to turn them this way, honey, so this way I can be right here at my normal heading. My normal orientation.
There we go.
Okay. So we're going to do our first set down here, so
okay.
If you want to get closer to that side.
Okay.
Better?
See, Roman Montieg, sorry I'm going to mess up your name here. Roman Montalego said that just built his first forge for Christmas, that's really awesome.
Awesome.
So, yeah, you'll be able to get to doing some forging here soon.
Yeah, you'll have a lot of fun, I promise.
Alexis Vanderford said, I'm super excited I caught y'all live. I enjoy watching your vids. I'm waiting for my spouse to finish building my forge, but watching your videos has given me a ton of ideas and knowledge. Thank y'all.
You're very welcome. I'm glad to hear that. Alright. I'm going to bring this out. I'm going to come right about here. Hopefully that's in focus. Yeah?
Yep.
Everything good?
Alexander, yes, right now it's 7 p.m. Eastern time where we are at. You're from Norway, so...
A little beyond 7 p.m., yeah.
Yeah.
Starting a little late. Alright. So now I'm going to go to the first layout mark. Okay? And I'm going to do half on, half off blows. Set that material down. And I want to hammer straight forward. Now I'm going to leave approximately 16 mil square or 5/8 inch square glob on the other end of that. And then set that down. I'm going to correct the width here.
Red Hot Metal asked why you forged with the horn left.
I forge with the horn left, not because of the horn, but because of the hardy hole. So, if you forge with your hardy hole to the right, and you're a right-handed person striking, you create a dangerous situation. If you forge with your hardy hole to the left, and you're a right-hand person striking, you've avoided a dangerous situation.
Makes sense.
This was an observation of looking at the way I seen some old picture reference to like colonial nail makers, guys making nails. They seem to always have this situated to the left, their little cutoff block, and then they would have their heading die to the right. And that's because in nail making the rod is so small that it would lose too much heat. They'd have to take 5-6 heats to get a nail headed. So to get it done in one heat, they would draw it out, nip it off, stick it in the header, twist it, head the nail up, dink, and it was done. So this way they could work without chopping fingers off. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, so I want to explain what we got going on here. Essentially what we were looking at, hey there Daniel, just saw your comment pop up. I need to clean this up a lot, do a lot more better job on cleaning that up. This won't focus, but woo! Okay,
There you go.
there we go. Okay, so essentially what you're looking at here is this portion here is going to become the inside of the vise. So how the vise comes together, like so. This here is going to become the back side of the eye, and we're going to forge an offset on that same side, away from this here. Hopefully that makes sense. So we're just dividing up the material. This is approximately 5/8 square, or 16 mil square. You can see it's a little longer than that. I'm not sure what that is, but that's okay. We're close to it. That's going to get refined more in the next heat. What this mass here is going to become is this is actually going to get spread out widthwise instead of linearly. It's going to get spread out widthwise to take and create our jaw itself. If that makes sense.
Fusion Rust asked, how wide will the jaws be?
The jaws are going to be approximately 1.5 inches wide. 1.5 to 1.25 inches. So 32 mil to whatever it is, 75 mil. No, not 75 mil.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
Whatever.
cool.
32 mil to something else mil.
32 to like 38 maybe.
Yeah. Anyways, that's what it's going to be. So hopefully everybody can see that. So that's what we have so far. Right now, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense until you see the next step. So let me get this hot again. I'm going to refine this shape, and then we'll move on.
Alrighty. Corey, I will read off your question. I know you've been waiting patiently.
All right, what's the question?
His question is about coal, and if, let's see, how toxic or dangerous are the fumes from different types of coal? So if you were to compare them, I suppose, which one is more toxic?
On what? Coal?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I guess it would depend on what is in the coal itself. You know, there's things called, miner's lung or black lung. I think that was attributed mostly to smoking, more or less, in the mines than actually from the coal dust itself. Once again, I'm not much of a history buff on that, so I couldn't really tell you. As far as, I know you won't want to breathe it in all day, every day, so it's good to have a good vent hood to pull the smoke out of your building. Anything that could be considered smoke in your lungs is a bad thing. Anything that's foreign other than air, oxygen, I would just assume it's bad.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go huffing it. So.
For all intensive purposes.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes.
Let's see. JMO says, did you make your anvil?
No, I did not make my anvil. I bought my anvil. That thing's 465 pounds, so.
Yeah. That would be difficult.
A bit beyond my skill. Well, a far cry beyond my skill. I probably could forge it if I had the equipment, but...
Yeah. Steve S. says, I'm assuming when you build the large post vise, you'll most likely want a power hammer, correct?
Nope, I'll do it by hand. For the most part. It's a very odd shape to get under a power hammer. So there would be certain portions of it that a power hammer would be handy for if we're doing a lot of drawing out, but there won't actually be that much drawing out on it because it'll be a component piece. So it'll be made of multiple components welded together. So since it's such an awkward shape, it would be very hard to get under the power hammer just right unless you had a lot of tooling, specialized tooling for doing that, which I don't have currently. What's up?
Steve S. says Steve S. is happy about your answer doing it by hand.
Good.
Let's see, Daniel Moss, he said, that's what I thought. Black lung is from coal dust. Somebody had mentioned that.
Yeah, somebody, I have heard that it was supposed to be from coal dust, but then I've heard the argument before that it was really because of the smoking. Guys back in the day when that was prominent, was people like to have their cigarettes all the time. That was kind of like the common thing, and that mixed with coal equaled black lung, but...
Gabe Hunt says, I'm a career coal miner. Black lung is silicosis of the lung due to breathing coal dust.
Okay.
So there you have it.
There you have it.
Take his word for it.
Coal miner for a living. Said, don't ask me. I just heard multiple stories different ways. So I've heard multiple stories saying, well, it's because of smokers or whatever. Now we all know. Silicosis of the lung from breathing coal dust. Don't do it. All right, we're getting hot. Let's go over here. We're going to get this shaped up.
Thomas, congratulations on the new anvil.
Yep.
Got a 100-pound anvil for $300.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so we're hanging this over the edge of the anvil. We'll continue to thin out this area here. So all I'm doing there is I'm sharpening up that little shoulder there, that little transition for the jaw. All right. Now, comically enough, for this next part, we're going to have to use a vise in order to make a vise. So before you go on much further from this portion, you want to make the jaw. And you're going to focus most of your time on the jaw. The eye and all that rest of that stuff will come later. It's the jaw that's the toughest portion of this deal. Now, you don't have to have a jaw. You don't have to have a vise for this. It makes it incredibly easier to have a vise to make this. Have a vise to make a vise. But you can do it at the edge of the anvil, especially if you have really good sharp edges. That's kind of key. If you have more rounded edges of your anvil, you'll want to have nice sharp edges or nice sharp jaws for this next part. And the reason for that being is we're going to hook this material here on the vise jaw itself, and we are going to upset this material down. And as we upset it, we're going to essentially try to spread it this way, crossways, with the crosspeen of the hammer. And that's what's going to grow this in width. And then we'll come back to the anvil and we'll hammer it back down this direction, if that makes sense. Daniel Moss? No, I'm not working from drawings. This here, pretty much coming off memory of one that I saw just recently and I didn't buy. I didn't have the cash on hand. I should have. But I saw it at a little estate shop kind of thing, like a little treasure shop type deal. And I wanted it. The guy wanted like 35 bucks for it. I'm like, there's 68 cents in steel there, plus I want to make it pretty. So I decided to make my own. But a lot of this that I'm doing here was part of a class I took with Tom Latney, where I did a much larger vise. I never got to the completed stage. I had all the components forged, but I need to have a refresher course before I get going on it again because it is a lot of steel. I could probably grab it and show them what it is, but Yeah, you want to go grab that real quick?
Sure.
But anyways, yeah, it's right over there on the shelf, hon. So essentially, it's just from memory right now of the different forging steps and stages in it. Great. I won't step around, guys, and read your comments. Woo.
Are we talking bottom shelf here?
Yeah.
A bunch of rusty steel.
All right, you come over here and
Okay.
talk for a moment, and
Alright,
or swinging around, look in my direction, I'll get it.
He sent me over to the shelves where there's a bunch of rusty metal over there, so I couldn't make heads or tails of it. Let's see here. Red Hot Metal, you got an anvil for Christmas too. That's an awesome gift. Ryan Hillsdale says, pretty sure with Olga you can make anything.
Yep. All right. Bring it up.
Yep.
So this is what we made in class, essentially. This was a fun week. If anybody gets a chance to take a class with Tom Latney, I highly suggest it. He is, in all consideration in my mind, one of the master smiths here in America. You know, and I can't say enough about the dude. Really great guy. I haven't got as far as I need to on these. These are just rough forged to shape. But essentially, this is what we're working on. So this is the rear of the vise jaw. That's what we'll forge on next week's live stream. And we're actually working on this one now. Or the front jaw. That makes sense. Well, actually, technically, that's the rear jaw. Sorry. This is the front jaw. See, it's been a while. This is the front jaw that we're working on now. We're working on this shape here. Now, Tom Latney, he has a tendency, instead of building up to a piece, he forges down from a larger piece. That kind of seems to be some of his method, at least that I've been able to work out. You can't quote me on that to any a certainty, because he pulls some craziness out sometimes. I'm like, where are you going with this? Mm-hmm. And then it just makes a lot of sense in the end, and he throws me through a loop every time. But, you know, so this was all forged from a larger bar of different cross-section, and then forged down to shape like this, all by hand at the anvil. So that's a fairly large vise in of itself. There's some friends of mine from Canada, Mike and Megan. I think Megan's last name's Carter. She wanted to do an entire leg vise, so she made an entire leg vise. It was about this big, but it had a whole leg to it and everything, and that was pretty neat. So, all right.
Back on.
Yep.
Right over there. All right.
Okay. Good.
Yep.
All right. Any questions?
All right. Let me see here. Dustin Hurst says, could you talk about blacksmithing math?
Blacksmithing what?
Math.
Math?
Yeah. Like, I guess if you have any calculations you like to particularly use?
I don't. I'm actually a horrible person for that. I have caught crud in the past for that because I don't use a lot of math in my shop. I do and I don't. So it's kind of one of those things I need to work on and get better as a blacksmith. You know, like geometry and trig, and maybe calculus would help too some days. I don't know. For the most part, the math that I use in my shop, I try to use round figures when I figure something. If I'm not quite sure on something, I will give it a little extra. That way you can always grind away, but it's very hard to put back on if you're wrong and something comes out too thin. Usually, yeah, I'm not going to do math on live,
Yeah.
on live stream. I have to, I'm bad at math to the point that I have to, stop what I'm doing and, sit and figure out exact equations if I'm trying to figure out something like the diameter of something. I don't just have, not one of my giftings. I don't just have it up here in my head, memorized. So.
John Hagen says, best channel ever, so informative. Thanks and God bless.
I'm glad you think that way. There's a lot of other really good channels out there, too. Oh, definitely check those out.
Jeff Sandling says, by the way, thanks for posting the Touchmark video. Decided on a design last night. Perfect timing.
Awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed that. So, Yeah, here's where I like to point out, since somebody had mentioned about me being the best blacksmith channel ever, there's some real good ones that are noteworthy that everybody should, take a look at. So I'll give them some shout out here. Tim at Big Dog Forge. You want to go check out his channel. He does a lot of really cool builds. Very informative guy. Lots of stuff going on there. Paul's Garage. Paul over at Paul's Garage. He does more like, he's got a dry sense of humor that I absolutely love. I actually posted a community post about his channel. He's another good one to check out. Gosh, hold on. Tim, yeah, that. John Switzer at Black Bear Forge. You'll maybe want to check out his channel as well. He's actually going through a whole series right now on trying to do some fundamentals for people. I really enjoy his teaching style. Then also across the pond, a buddy of mine, Daniel Moss. If you haven't checked out his channel,
yep, he's on right now.
Yep, he's on. He's been commenting in the comment section. He is also a good channel to check out. He comes from a little different, he comes from different perspectives. And so definitely go out there on YouTube. There's so many channels out there. Gain as much different perspectives as you can. And it's kind of really interesting to see something like a bottle opener done from 8 different smiths can come out 8 different ways. And that's really neat. There's really something to learn from all those. And then, last channel shout out I wanted to take and do is Twan over at Warp Legacy. Now he does more of a comedic side of blacksmithing thing. Once again, he's kind of got a sense of humor that I just dig, so definitely check him out.
Yeah, he just did a Christmas song for blacksmith.
Yeah,
he just did
the 12 days of blacksmithing Christmas or something like that. I think it is. Anyways, it's in the community tab on the community post. You guys should have seen it in your browse features, but yeah, really neat dude, really funny stuff. So
Steve S says, watch both your Rose videos, the fab and finish. Very informative. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm glad you like those.
All right, ready to go to the anvil?
No, not quite.
Not yet. Okay.
I actually need to readjust the tongs here. I have that locked up there. These tongs don't quite fit this stock the best, so that's why I have to break those loose like that. What's up? Any other questions?
Sure. Do you preheat your anvil on a cold day? Oded? Yeah, we actually, somebody asked that last live stream as well. Roy doesn't particularly care to do that, but you could try it for yourself and see if that's handy.
People who, I don't see a need in preheating an anvil. Just get to work and get the work done. And if you're working it hard enough, an anvil hard enough, it's going to heat up after a long, hard day. It's kind of pointless to try to heat up 465 pounds of steel. I don't care what you lay on it, it's never going to heat it up. After a good 12 or 14 hour day of hand forging on the anvil, which I've done in the past, or work at and that's usually working some fairly large stock, it'll heat up like the surface will be kind of warm to the touch, but I guess that's the downside of having a big anvil. They don't heat that well.
Yeah, it draws the heat.
They draw the heat out of your stock, but I'd rather that than lose the energy. Okay. All right, we're going to go over the vise?
Yep.
Got time for one more question while you move me?
All right, sure. Bob Smith. Roy needs some help on when to harden and temper.
Okay, on when to harden and temper? All right, well, I guess that depends. It really depends on your tool. This is almost a heat, so I'll say it quick. Okay. It depends on the tool and what it's going to be used for. Usually, if it's a drift, I don't harden and temper drifts. If it's something that it's not punching material, but it's manipulating material, a lot of times the tool steels that I use, which I use basic series, like 10 series tool steel, like 1095, 1045, things like that. Usually those, if they're just being used to bend, break, kind of manipulate metal around or through the material, they don't have to be hardened and tempered. If you're planning on cutting cold steel, you want to harden and temper. If you're wanting to cut stuff that might get mildly hot steel, something of that nature, you'll probably want to harden and temper the tool for the most part. Now, I had this come up, and I'll go ahead and bring this out here. Somebody had asked why, after all the effort I put into my little touch mark, which I got this, I actually measured this, and it's essentially 5/32 tall by right around it's 3/32 tall by 5/32 wide. The very, very, very small touch mark. I'm quite proud of it, actually. I'm like, wow, I can't believe I actually did that on camera, no less. But people ask, well, why didn't you, after doing all that thing, why didn't you put it in the oven and heat treat it properly and all this other stuff? I am not a metallurgist, never have been, never claimed to be, and so therefore I find there's certain things in blacksmithing that don't matter for heat treating. If you're going to make something like an axe for somebody, you're going to make a blade for somebody, you're going to make some sort of cutting tool that's going to be under high stresses or high strains of some sort, it matters. And you're going to, especially if you're selling that tool to somebody else, it matters. It's critical then. If you're making a punch that's going to go through super hot steel and probably going to get tempered anyhow, it's not worth the extra process of having to go in and run it in the oven for 3 cycles at 2 hours at 500 degrees or something like that. That's kind of pointless. You're wasting time when you could be getting other stuff done. So in that case, I sacrifice maybe some of the quality that I could have in a tool over the efficiency of having the tool done, made, and moving on to the next project. So that's kind of my thought process when it comes to tooling. There's guys out there, they make some really gorgeous tooling and it takes them a month to do it. I just don't have that time luxury in my shop, so I've found ways of cutting corners with doing heat treating. So hopefully that's good enough answer.
That sounds good.
All
right, over to the vise, you say? Get it set up here.
All right. So now I'm going to stand it right in the vise. Other purpose of having that double set down like you see there. I'm just going to lock it lightly in the vise. And now instead of hammering just straight down, we want to try to spread this material. We don't want to just hammer straight down. We want to fuller this material. Alright, so that's enough for one heat. It's good and hot. I know, anticlimactic, I know, but there we go. We're starting to get that spread on the top. That's what we're looking for as we keep crunching this down. So we're going to correct the spreading that's going on this way so it goes all that way. Hopefully that makes sense. Any questions?
Are you coming back to the vise, or?
I'll be coming back to the vise here in a few minutes.
Okay.
Well, once it's hot.
Let's see. Roy, do you think a forge should be... Let's see. Hang on, I lost the comment there. Let's see. Roy, do you think a forge should be titled like a house or open?
What?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand either.
Tiled like a house?
Title.
Say it again?
Title. T-I-T-L-E.
Titled like a house or open. I guess you'll have to give me more definition there.
Let's see. Tight.
Tight like a house. Okay, I'm assuming you're meaning like enclosed or in a hood or something like that. Or more open, like an open air thing. I would prefer, if I had it, I would do a forced draft system that pulls the smoke out, and I would have it right dead center of the shop and all open air as it could be. That way I could get around any part of this forge that I wanted to with whatever material I had to work on.
Red Hot Metal says, why do you use coal for some stuff but also gas for others, and what would you use for what size steel?
Okay, so size has nothing to do with it. unless it's too big to fit in your gas forge or your coal forge. Highly unlikely either one of those unless you have like a rivet forge or something that doesn't have a very deep fire pot where you can't fit a big chunk of metal on there. A gas forge is limited to the confounds of what a gas forge can do. The reason why I select one or the other, a coal forge is great for good, intense, localized heats. That's what I'm using. That's what I need in this job. I don't need full 12 or 14 inches of stock to be hot in order for me to work on the end of the bar like I'm doing. I just really need an intense heat right on the area that I'm working. A gas forge is great for production. I'll say it a million times. I mean, you could do it. You could do it, and I do it. And before I had gas, I did it in the coal forge all the time. Production, multiple rods in there. Since it's a hand crank, there's a little bit of a trick to it. Since it's a hand crank, you can't just let it run and at a set air gate zone. But gas is great for production. If you just want to take and throw a bunch of pieces in there and pull one right after the other, it'll work you to death. You can't let them sit in there too long. There is a limit because they will eventually oxidize, and they'll continue to oxidize, and you'll degrade the surface finish of the pieces that you're working on. And I may do that at some point, just do a time lapse of a bar inside the forge, and you can watch it, and it scales up, and the scale plop off, and then it'll scale up again, and it'll plop off, and it'll scale up again, and it'll plop off, and it'll scale up, and eventually it won't plop off anymore, but then it just continues to scale underneath that, and it'll come to a point where it's just crumbly off the end of it, where it's so oxidized at that point, even in a reducing fire, there's enough oxygen still yet in the fire that it will do that. So there is a limit. You can't have 50 pieces sitting in the gas forge and then go off and take a lunch break and come back and continue working. You're probably going to have really poor results.
Matt Harrison said, just made a coffee can forge based on one of your old vids. Made some S-hooks last night with it. Thanks for all your videos.
Hey, you're welcome. Awesome.
That was one of our original 10 videos. That's been about 2 years since that video came out.
Yeah, it's been about 2 years ago now. So, yeah, that little coffee can forge, it can get stuff hot. It's not going to do big work, but for S-hooks and things of that nature, it's perfect. All right, we're getting hot, so I'm going to bring it over.
All right.
So at some point here, I'll probably just get this portion done, and then I'll save my talking for a little later. But here we go. So. Once again, we're just trying to develop width out of this thing. All right, that's going far enough. Now, I'm going to point this out real quick. If anybody's noticed, I've choked up on the hammer handle for this operation. The reason why is I can't take a full stroke out here anymore because this vise is higher than what I could complete a stroke. And so by doing that, I'm avoiding wrist problems, it jerking in my wrist. By coming like this, I'm holding it loosely, I'm compensating for not being able to have the height to complete the stroke. Just a little tip. So here we go. So now we're getting the width into this thing. Now I need to go over to the anvil and I need to dress out the swelling that's happened in this direction.
Looks like you could almost use a railroad spike.
What's that?
A railroad spike. It's got a big mass of metal on the end.
Yeah, you probably could.
Alright, over to the anvil.
Yep.
Alright, we had one question asked a couple of times.
Right.
Let me read it off here. John Hagan says, do you bloom your steel or do you buy it, and what do you recommend?
I buy my steel, and I recommend the scrapyard for all intents and purposes. getting good with a local scrapyard somewhere, you know, you can usually find a good supply of steel for cheap. Some scrapyards will not, for the life of you, for insurance reasons, let you into their yard. Ask if they have a steel department that they sell steel from. Some scrapyards do. Some scrapyards are only receiving scrapyards only. And in that case, you have to look for a new steel supplier. And then I would suggest have a good stock of mild steels and some good 10 series carbon steels for tool making of some sort.
Ricardo Cardoso says, I'm Portuguese, I'm 16, and I make knives.
Well, good to have you, Ricardo.
The Real Big Swede says, would you use a copper aluminum hammer, and yes, no, or why?
I know where you're asking that one from. Paul over at Paul's Garage just made one. Pretty much an aluminum bronze. An aluminum bronze hammer. That is one I don't know about. Now, I don't know much about bronze. I have forged very little silica bronze. That's different than aluminum bronze. So I don't know any of the characteristics to really comment. I'm flattered that he copied my hammer design. He kind of copied my hammer design, so that's pretty awesome. Oh, and gave me credit for that.
Paul says, now where would you get that idea?
No, you did a real great job on that, Paul. As far as longevity, hitting hot steel, it's probably fine. If you get into where you're cold working something on steel, it may not hold up. The surface might get pitted up or dinged in that case. But once again, I'm not sure. I've never worked with it. So I'm interested to see how that turns out. All right, this is good and hot. Going to the anvil.
Okay.
All right, half on, half off close. I'm pushing that mass to the front. And then I'm correcting the spread. And squaring everything up. You're going to have to do this a couple times. There's a lot of doing this here. I hope you guys can start seeing how this is turning out now. Everybody can see that?
Uh-huh.
So hopefully everybody can see that jaw there. Starting to form. Except we got a little bit more work with it. It's too wide right now, so we're going to keep squeezing this face down. But at the same time, we're going to square it up and try to get it to spread just a little bit more.
Back in the fire we go.
Yep.
All right.
Keep them shooting. Rapid fire questions.
Okay. Are you using green coal or coke?
You forge in coke. Green coal converts to coke. You forge in coke. So this is called a green coal forge, or it's meant to be used with green coal, with coke. It makes its own coke. You can also buy like metallurgical grade coke and forge in just coke and coke fires. It requires a lot more cranking than what I'm doing here, and it's a lot cleaner fire forging with nothing but coke. Metallurgical grade coke.
Digger Blade says, gotta run guys, heading to my brother's to watch my Buckeyes. Gonna have to catch on the replay. Hammer on everybody.
Hey, what's the Buckeyes have to do with anything?
They don't have hammers.
Alright, Digger Blades. We'll see ya.
Let's see. Jason Herbst says, do I strictly use a cross peen or do you use like a rounding hammer, and what's the difference?
Okay, so I do not use a rounding hammer except for special purposes. I use a cross peen predominantly. It's whatever you're comfortable with. I have done videos on hammers in the past. Get an array of hammers. Different hammers with different shaped faces do different things, and they produce different quality results. One thing, rounding hammers, they can be a great thing. This is one that I've made myself. It's a lot different than the normal ones you would see. It's essentially a rounded face on this end, and then a flat face on this end. I don't know if anybody see that, right?
Yep.
Everybody's okay? So it's essentially a rounding hammer, or turning hammer, or farrier's clipping hammer. It can be all considered the same thing, although theirs are a lot stubbier. One thing that you will find difficult to do if you get a really large rounding hammer, or what I see a problem with most of the rounding hammers out there nowadays, is getting into tight corners with them. It requires a little bit different processes, and to be able to force material exactly one direction or another, a cross peen is far superior in that. Rounding hammers have their place. Like, there is a lot of places that this can get in and correct where this one can't. And so, I just use whichever tool is right for the job at hand.
Right.
Most of the time, I don't use a rounding hammer though.
Question answered. Real Big Sweet says, I'm sitting here and watching you on my 12th year anniversary, Roy. He said, my wife thinks it's cool to learn more about forging.
Okay, well that's good. Okay.
Woo. As long as she agrees.
Hey. That's good. I'm glad. Well, if you don't want to tell your wife's name, that's alright. I was going to give her a shout out, but you can say your wife's name and I'll say, hello, wife.
Of the Real Big Sweet. There you go. Manga
right.
12, so you're making a vise from scratch,
Yep.
Lisa's her name, by the way.
Lisa, I'm glad you're choosing to spend your 12-year anniversary with us, watching us freeze out here in the shop. So, thank you.
All right.
It's okay, Real Big Sweet, if you don't want to be, if you can watch it on the replay. Oh. Alright, we're going to go back to the vise.
Okay. Paul's Garage said, if I did that on my anniversary, I would be sleeping in the garage. LOL.
It literally would be Paul's garage.
It would be.
Paul of the garage.
There you go.
Alright. Going to tighten that up again. And once again, trying to drive the width into the material. Dropping stuff is always fun. Remember that, kiddos. Alright, now you can see the width come out of that. Starting to look oddly familiar, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there we are. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up, and I'll do everything else at the anvil now to clean up this jaw for the most part. So I'm going to clean up the jaw, and then we'll move at putting in our second set down and then punching the eye.
All right. Andrew Freeman says, would a heavier hammer be beneficial here?
No. Actually, a lighter hammer would be more beneficial. So the ideal here, okay, so let me put this into words that makes intelligible sense. Let's try that, huh?
Okay.
You think that would work?
That'd probably be good.
If I make words that have intelligible sense?
You could always speak any language, but...
Okay, so, if you use... You might want to face it up here.
Okay.
Okay. So if you use a heavy hammer to hit a piece of hot steel, the kinetic energy has more absorption through the entire piece. So you impart more kinetic energy through the entirety of the piece, and so therefore you get something that happens like this. It bends, or the whole thing compresses, okay? If you hit the same piece of steel with a lighter hammer that cannot throw as much kinetic energy through the piece, you get more swelling out the top. Or doming or barbelling or anything like that. This is kind of a bad piece. This is just an experiment that I was messing around with, okay? But you get more of the swelling. So a lightweight hammer is better when you're trying to get more surface material to move, where a heavier hammer is better when you're trying to get a lot of mass to move. Hopefully that makes sense.
Makes sense.
Okay.
John Coffey, have seen you at my local scrapyard a couple of times, Roy.
Yeah, I have. Good to have you here, John. Glad you catched the demo.
Let's see, Manga 12, what is the temperature in your shop?
Not that cold.
About 15 degrees.
Yeah, about 15 degrees or so. Give or take.
Let's see, Oded says, so you need a vise to make a vise.
No, you can do it. You can do it at the anvil. It's handy to have that vise to isolate that top mass, but you can work it right at the edge of the anvil if you have a sharp enough anvil edge to work with. If you don't have a sharp enough anvil edge, you have to have a block, like a hardy block that can fit, that has sharp edges on it, or sharper edges with like an 1/8 inch radius. Good?
Yeah, we're good. So heat it up.
Yep, going to the vise. I'm going to the anvil.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, Manga 12. The forge doesn't even warm up the shop because there are so many gaps in this building. It's not insulated at all either. Hello, Chris Mullick. Yes, Graham, you need a hammer to make a hammer.
Yep, need a hammer to make a hammer. I don't know, I guess you could use a rock.
You could beat it with a rock, but...
Now all I'm doing is I'm really just kind of planishing stuff up. It needs a lot of work yet, but this is as far as I'm going to go with this portion. I can always fiddle with this later when I'm not on camera. Essentially, it's just more of the same. It's just more of the same. All you're doing is hammering. Trying to get this nice and square and everything to look real nice and even.
Fusion Rust says, looking good, Roy. I'm seeing it take place now. Take sheet.
Yep. So now we got the jaw of the vise essentially formed. Like I said, you're going to see some roughness here. I'm not going to take the time. We're already an hour in. So I'm trying to keep this to no longer than 2 hours. So now I'm going to move on to the rest of it. The rest of the set downs that I need to do. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm. It does.
Okay. All right, so now the next part of this process, go all the way over to the vise, hon.
Okay.
Would you? Actually, you don't have to do that.
You don't have to do that.
No, I got, well, no, that's a good example. Let's go to the vise.
Okay, we're going to the vise off.
Yeah, we're going to the vise.
There's Sheedy.
And I'm probably going to lie to you. I'm probably just gonna lie to you. I gotta clean that up. I can't let that be.
Okay. It's
not clean enough for me. Okay, so essentially, now we have this. Can everybody see it?
Yep.
So we got the little mini-me here. Now there's more curves in here, but I have a reason why I'm doing sharper corners. I have some ornamentation that I'm going to be doing later on this that I need to have the sharper radiuses. If you want more radius and things like this, you can do it on a more rounded edge or do it on the horn. It is a little harder to control, so you have to be a little more careful, but you can do that. So now what we have is we have this top jaw here. This here has got to be able to move or be able to get bent or shaped just right so this way it holds perfectly. So this is going to have a slight arc into it, or a slight curvature to it. But this here is going to become essentially a shelf area, kind of like this in a way. And then this here, we have to maintain as much mass in here as we can, because this is essentially one of the highest stress points of the entire vise. The jaws are one stress point, but if you notice, here to here is very close. It's very close to the fulcrum point, okay? So it's very up here towards to the actual jaw. And the reason why they do that is so this way this doesn't flex. You don't want this to flex while you're working on it, okay? Well, the same thing is the reason why these are constructed like this is if this was flat or thin and you were to crank on this and this is held tight, it's going to bend right at the eye because you're creating a weak point at the eye. So if you're when we do a larger vise, this area here is going to have to be upset quite a bit in order to take, before we do the slot punching and the drifting of the actual eye. And the reason for that being is, like I said, this here has got to be the bulkiest portion of the vise. Everything else from there doesn't actually take a load or a strain for the most part, but this here does. So that's why I'm going to leave this area in here thick when I drift my eye.
Andrew Freeman says, could you split the top to get the same effect, or would that compromise the strength of the jaws?
You can split the top. That's one thing you can do. I chose the forge away and draw out method. You can split it and fold it. You have to be real careful not to develop cold shuts in the corner, and it takes some time. You have to, take your time at forging out the little gully that happens in the top of the jaw. But yeah, you can do a split jaw like that. Any questions?
That was the only question regarding the vise at this point.
Okay.
Do you want regular comments as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you want. So I'm going to get this hot again, and then I'm going to clean this. Okay. So I'm going to clean this up here.
Okay.
A little bit better.
Relocate, and then I'll read some off. Alright, yeah, make sure you give this video a like, guys. If you haven't yet, we appreciate it.
Yep. And for anybody who's just joining us, or anybody who's watching this on the replay and they skipped ahead, which I know there's some skippers out there that like to skip around on these videos. What I'm making is I'm doing an entire vise live stream series. So I am making a gunsmith vise or a hand vise, a frizzen vise, if you will, lockmakers, clockmakers vise. It's been called by a bunch of different names. It's essentially a hand vise that you hold in your handheld, and so you can do filing, small filing of parts and things, okay? Small holding of stuff in the hand, okay? Mm-hmm. So I'm making the first half of the jaw, or the front half of the vise. Next week's live stream, I'll make the rear half of the jaw. So that'll be in 2018. I'll be making the rear section of the jaw, or the other half. Mm-hmm. Then I will actually make the screw and the barbell and the hinge joint and all that stuff at a later date, and then we'll do some ornamentation on it. So every live stream from here for the next few live streams is going to be making this vise. And I'm hoping some of you are brave enough to start following along. Yeah. This would be a really cool series.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I'd like to see I'd like to see some of the other YouTube Smiths out there and creators follow along, put out some progress photos, some things like that. Get it going. So.
Even if you don't make stuff on YouTube, you could go on Instagram, and if you tag us there, we'll see your posts. So that'll work as well.
Or if you would like us to post them for you, or be able to post them to a community tab, which I have access to the community tab now on YouTube. You can submit your photos to my Gmail. Right, honey?
Yeah, ChristCenteredForge@gmail.com.
Yep, ChristCenteredForge@gmail.com. You can submit those there, and then I will take some of them and show some of everybody's progress if you're not a YouTuber or whatever. But
yeah. Graham Pepper says you should call it the finger crusher.
The finger crusher. That'll do. That'll do.
Let's see.
I'm going to clean this up over at the anvil. You can keep talking.
Prescott, I believe Frizzen is the correct way you spell that. Like you
Prison. Yep.
Prison. Let's see. Manga 12 says, great, we have to wait a whole year. No, not exactly, since the New Year's about to start.
No.
Let's see here. Ricardo had asked what to do so that knives don't get rusty, and Ryan Hillsdale had answered that. He says he recommends coating it with WD-40 as you don't do knife blades. So he made that recommendation on your behalf there.
Why, thank you, Ryan Hillsdale.
Yeah, Randy, Roy's not really a knife person. He prefers doing other decorative ironwork.
Now, I have a video coming out, and it's going to offend a lot of people, and I know it already, and I'm sorry. Well, actually, I'm not really sorry, but it's going to be a whole video of essentially me smack talking of why I don't make knives. Now, I'm just going to do this video out of jest for fun, because I get asked this all the time, and it's about as bad as, do you shoot horses? It's getting annoying. Oh, of course, you know, there's a few instigators and troublemakers here that like to say that on purpose, and I forgive them on the daily.
Mega 12 says, how about an axe?
I wouldn't mind making an axe for everybody if they want to see me make one. Because it's not a knife. Alright, that's good enough for YouTube.
Okay. Prettied it up.
I can take care of anything else with a file. So there we have it. Nice and clean. Nice, clean forging. That's what I want.
Graham wants to see you shoot
a horse.
see
me shoot a horse.
That ain't happening.
Yeah, that won't be happening any time in this lifetime or next. Hopefully. Unless I'm in hell.
Roy doesn't even pet horses. We'll just put it that way. So
I don't even pet horses. I don't even... Yeah.
Let's see. Billy Martin says axe would be good. Prescott Stoop says good enough for YouTube, would make a great t-shirt. LOL.
Yeah, it would. It would make a great t-shirt.
Big play button on the front.
Yeah, big play button. Good enough for YouTube.
Randy Nyman says, how about trimming goat's hooves?
I've done that. I have trimmed goat's hooves. They don't like it if you try to shod them, though.
Probably not, no. Like, what are you doing to me? Len Branstad says, the wife wants to know if you do yard art.
That's one thing I probably don't do, no.
Yeah,
haven't done a whole lot. I'm assuming it's more like welded art kind of thing. I do art, but I don't do yard art per se. Depends on what your definition would be.
Let's see, Ethan Stone. Hey, could you put the link to the video of where you make the engraver? You forgot to put it in the description. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay, we'll make note of that. So, thank you for letting us know that, by the way.
Yes, thank you. And Len said yes, welded art for the yard.
Welded art. Okay, yeah. No, I haven't done a whole lot of welded art or anything like that. Not really my style, so.
See, Donald Roberts said he's going to try making a hatchet with an edge on both sides.
Good. So, double-headed axe. Double-bit axe, I should say. Proper terminology.
Ryan Hilldale said, as a knife maker, open my arms to your video. At one time I was only a knife maker until I discovered you and the introduction of blacksmithing.
Well, that's good to know.
See, Andrew, thanks for stopping in with us. Have fun tucking in your kids. Brian Neely, is this vise going to be a hardy tool?
No. It's just a hand vise. Something you'd hold in the hand to do filing with.
Ricardo, yes, we have an Instagram. Instagram.com/Christ-Centered Ironworks.
Yep. Or at Iron.
What? Yeah, or that's another way. Yeah, if you don't like the technical leagues.
Yeah. All right. Want to turn it over here?
Yep.
All right. Now I'm going to find my next place to set down the material. So I'm going to go ahead and give it about 1/4 inch or 6 mil and half on, half off. I want to make a little nub there. Once again, the only purpose for this is really not needed. The only purpose for this little nub here is I'm going to detail it later. So don't feel like you have to put this in on yours. But I'm probably going to do some chased roping detail there later. Alright. I'm going to show everybody what I got there. I got some stuff stuck to it here. So I'll brush her off. Everybody can see the cleanliness of that. So here's a good place to point out. Since there was no, can everybody see this okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, since there was no resistance, no mechanical resistance this way, where I bit off at it was approximately 1/4 inch or 6 mil, but it squashed it to about 1/8 mil or 3 or down to 1/8 inch. Get my numbers messed up. It squashed it to nearly 1/8 inch on the one side here because the material was allowed to shift and move that way. Okay, it was allowed to move that way. So that's something to keep in mind when you're doing something very close to an edge that is not mechanically backed up or supported in that way. It's going to allow the material to move more versus forging an exact set down in that area. So it will slide a little bit. Not a big deal. Just if you're trying to calculate things exactly, you have to keep that in mind and take it in effect for the next half of the jaws. So I know that it slid. I'm going to forge my rear half of the jaws essentially the same way. So I knew that it slid and created this result. So I'm just going to translate that onto the next piece. And it'll work out fine. I don't know if everybody can see that just fine.
Yeah.
And now you can see I left this area thicker. It's not quite as thin as that area, hopefully.
It's a little better. Yeah, there we go.
Everybody can see that that is thicker here in cross-section than what it is here. We want that for good support of the eye.
Yeah.
Good?
Yep. Gives it character, says Prescott.
Yep. Okay, so while you're looking here, so now you can see my next mark right here. Mm-hmm. That's my next little shoulder that I'm going to set down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make the rest of this material here come down to the same thickness and plane. That's what I'm shooting for this to be the same thickness of material all the way throughout, with the excess of this material going that way. Reason for that being is that is going to become our hinge section. So it has to get shoved that way. Mm-hmm. So we're going to use half on, half off blows on this material and set this down. So we're going to do that all in one step. Hopefully everybody can see that. Hope I'm not like really awkward.
You're fine. Hit the middles and.
Okay, can everybody see here? Focus?
Yeah, you're good. You can stand up normally.
Okay.
There.
So what we're going to do is we're going to set our punch mark, our center punch mark, which is on this side of the bar. We're going to locate it. We're going to put it on the bottom, and then we're going to hammer this offset in, and what that's going to do is that's going to even up this thickness while pushing this mass of bar forwards. Hopefully that makes sense.
Set down laterally, says Prescott.
Yeah, set down laterally, I guess. Yeah, it's going that way, forward, towards like the bitey of the jaw. The bitey of the jaw, it's going towards the bitey of the jaw.
Yeah.
Not the opposite way. If you forge it the opposite way, you lost it. You'll have to start over because you put your mass the wrong direction. So.
All right.
All right. I'm going to get it hot, and we're going to do that now.
All right.
And we'll be ready to... We're boogieing.
Let's see. Donald Roberts says, I want to try my hand at making watch fobs. Have you ever tried that?
Watch fobs. I don't know what that is. So no, I've never tried that. Sounds interesting, though.
Charles Walker had followed that up with leaves and horse heads make good fobs.
Oh, okay. Like a key fob, like a keychain. Keychain thing. Okay, cool. A clock fob? Huh. I'd like to see how that goes. Tag me on Instagram or something with that. That would be cool.
Thomas Edwards says, you said that your garage is very cold. Does that lead to quicker cooling off of the steel you are forging?
Yes and no. It kind of makes everything it comes in contact with fairly cold to begin with. Atmosphere-wise, it's to a degree, but not really noticeable. I like to work at a very high heat and then put it back in the fire before that heat's over with, usually when I'm not demonstrating and showing each step. So I don't notice it really that much cooling off that quick. Now, real small stuff, you'll notice it big time. Like if you're working with like 1/4-inch rod and things, doing like S-hooks, yeah, a cold day like today will chill that like now. Almost instantaneously. I'm going to get me a drink real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sure. Let's see
Give us
here. FSims97, good evening, Roy. How are we doing this evening? We're doing good.
You're doing good.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Oded Traster, how do you make a lot of woodworking tools?
No, I do not. I know John Switzer over at Black Bear Forge, he makes a lot of woodworking tools. I don't make any woodworking tools. Probably because I am a really cruddy woodworker. Surprisingly enough, that's another God-given gift and talent that I am not talented nor gifted at. Nor practiced, nor skilled, nor honed, or refined, or anything of the like.
Donald Roberts had said about the watch fobs, they hang from pocket watches, usually on overalls.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Randy Nyman says, do you have any videos on how to dress hammer faces?
I think I have a video on that. How I dress my...
You do.
I have several videos on hammers, proper hammering technique. I believe I've explained quite a bit on how to dress hammer faces. There are several techniques to doing that. Essentially, you just want to alleviate really sharp corners. As long as you keep that in mind, you're golden for the most part. You don't want to have like knife cutting edge sharp on your hammers. And you don't want to have any sort like really raw edges or anything like that from like chip outs or anything of that nature on your hammer, because it'll leave those impressions in the piece or galling. So as long as you alleviate the edges a little, that's a good way of doing it. These here are about a 1/4-inch radius on the corners and about an 1/8 inch or less radius on the front and back edges. Now I match my hammer edges. I like forging with a square cross peen hammer, so this way I can square everything up on my anvil and get good square, tight, clean forgings. So now if you were working with wrought iron, you'd want considerably smoother corners, as wrought iron has a tendency to break through the grain if you forge on too sharp a thing. So you may want to alleviate them to about a 1/4-inch radius. Good.
Jeff DeRiso says, new watcher and follower, new to blacksmithing. Thanks for all the tips and advice.
You're very welcome. Glad to have you here. All right, I'm going to come over to the anvil.
Okay.
We're going to do that set down now that I talked about, pushing the mass of the bar towards the bitey end.
Okay, the bitey end.
The bitey end. Ready?
Mm-hmm. Ready?
You there?
Yep.
Okay. So this is where it's going to get a little tricky. Because I'm forging between two shoulders. Make sure I was on my mark. It appears I was. So this is where it'll get kind of tricky on you. Because you're forging literally between two shoulders. So on opposite ends. And you have this out here that you have to maintain. Now, if you're a real technical person, and you're a nerd for numbers, you would take measurements of all this, and how much each thing moved, and when, and things like that. I'm not a nerdy guy, so I won't be doing that in my humble shop today. Alright. Hopefully everybody can see this. It's looking fairly clean. I'd like to get it a little cleaner. That's good and square. That's good. This heat is entirely meant to planish right now. I don't know if the camera shows it up, but it's about a red heat.
Yeah, it shows the dull red.
It's a very dull red heat. This is a planishing heat. You can planish in this heat all the way down to black. And then you got to stop hitting it. If this is a high carbon steel, you want to stop hitting it a little sooner. But, yeah, we essentially got it. This here needs to get forged down a little more. There we go. So planishing means to planish out hammer marks. You're not trying to forge or really move any material. You're just trying to move surface material. So there we go. We evened up that thickness and we pushed our mass that way. Mm-hmm. That's what we're wanting. Hopefully everybody can see that. Everybody got that?
So how many more steps are there to this particular...
Okay, so the last thing we're going to do this evening, now this will get cut off the bar at a later date. We'll just cut this off. But this portion here, we're going to go ahead and slot punch and drift open the eye now.
Okay.
Okay?
Graham says, all good, Roy.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Graham. Troy T, good evening, Roy. Hope your family had a Merry Christmas. Looks cold where you are.
That it is. Oh. Now, one thing I want to point out. Now you can see quite a bit of space between my jaw and my eye. I'm doing that for a purpose. So, if you look at, go to eBay, search them, like, look for like Clockmaker's Vice or Frizzen Vices, and you'll see that they're essentially just pint-sized versions of that. But there's other vices out there that have long necks to them to allow for a greater depth of material that you can grab. And so that's what I'm designing this one after. I want there to be a longer depth between the eye and the actual pinching point of the vise. I'm giving up a little bit of clamping pressure to bowage. Okay? But, so this way I can clamp on wider pieces of material with it. Or more complex shapes, so to speak. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Well, we all know Jessica gets it. Does anybody else get it?
Thomas Urso, thanks for joining us. Have a Happy New Year as well.
Yeah, Happy New Year, Thomas. Thank you for joining us. Let me find my slot punch real quick.
Okay.
You keep talking.
All right.
Answers?
Goat Milk 1061, sending love and thanks from CA. Thank you very much.
What was that again?
Sending love and thanks from CA, California, I believe.
All right. Good.
That's been like 3 minutes since we've had a comment, guys. You live out there?
Yeah, everybody live out there? Like, just thoroughly enthralled.
Either that or I don't think we've lost the data. It's the counter's still going.
Okay.
There we go. Oded Tracer. You guys are awesome. Thank you for doing this. You're welcome. Thanks for spending your evening with us.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right. That would be a different tong clip.
Let's see, Ryan Hilldale. Good question. Are you creating the screw?
I will not be creating the screw on this one. I'm actually going to use a large bolt for this particular project. On the larger vise that I plan on doing and intend on doing, I will actually be trying to make the screw itself. There's a way that Tom Latané had talked about in class that he had seen done on a vise before, where essentially 1/4-inch rod square, or not quite 1/4-inch, like 3/16 by 1/4-inch, so 1/4-inch tall by 3/16 wide. Banding was essentially spiraled or corkscrewed around the actual rod of the screw, and then another piece screwed around that inserted into the screw box, and then slowly backed out. And then those were brazed in the each were brazed, and then it would create the outside threads. Without being a machinist and being able to take and cut actual threads like that, it'd be very difficult. So I'm going to try that other technique. We'll see how it turns out. But you can use a big bolt, and they sell that stuff now. You can buy
big threaded pieces.
Big threaded pieces that are already done like that, like the screw here. I forget what they call that machine to thread that's in it, but you can actually buy lengths of it now, and we may just do that and braze it on if it's a real problem.
Evil Twin X says, "Hey Roy, haven't commented in a long time, but watch all your videos."
Awesome, Evil Twin X. Glad to have you here.
Ryan Hillsdale, they sell vices too, Roy. LOL.
Hey, yeah, they do sell vices. But that's not the point, is it?
Brian Neely says, Acme thread.
Acme thread. That was the thing I was thinking of. I couldn't, for the life of me, I wasn't even going to attempt to hack the name together. I knew it was something with an A, but there's a whole lot of things with an A that you can say. Alright. Huh?
You going down there?
Yep, let me see how I want to do this here.
Okay.
In a little while. Okay? I'm going to put a tongue clip on this.
Joe Mathias, if you're just joining us, here in a moment, Roy will be pulling out the vise jaw he's working on, and you can see how far he's come along so far. And of course, you can watch it on the replay as well.
All right. So now, keeping that little shoulder off the edge, anvil, we're going to come up right about where that shoulder would start on the underside, and we're going to slot punch this piece. Try to get as centered as we can. Now that you've done all this work, it's good to take your time on this. Don't rush it. Yeah, You'll be sorry if you do.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to mess it up at this
Yep.
juncture.
So what I'm doing is I'm making sure that this is hooked on the anvil's edge. There we go. It's getting pretty close. Now, this is where the dual horn comes in handy. You know what? I might take one more heat on that and drive that down just a little further.
Okay.
But I want to show everybody what I got.
It's a good start.
So now you can see it swelling out. You want to slot punch this and drift it open just so you can get that swell out of there. You want to keep as much thickness in this area, like I said, as you can. If you have more mass available to you, you can drill holes in it to make it easier and then cut that out. But once again, you're removing material. So you really want to try to punch this hole out here. Oh.
Jay Sanders says, how did you get into videoing?
Well, that was actually kind of...
Funny story on this one.
Actually, there's a funny story on that. So I took a class out at Tunnel Mill. And at Tunnel Mill, there was a guy by the name...
Mark Asbury.
Well, Mark Asbury. Mark Asbury was there taking a class with me and Tom Latney and I'm going to forget my other two...
classmates.
My other three classmates that were there. Sorry if they watched my channel. I apologize. Forgot your names on camera. But anyways, we were all taking a class from Peter Ross doing a crab lock making class. And so Mark Asbury, through talking with him, he had said that he had a YouTube channel. And I said, yeah, I know you from your YouTube channel. And I've watched a lot of, all the videos you have, essentially. And so we got to talking. And he kind of, we talked loosely about what he has made in the past on, like, AdSense kind of thing. And at that time, I was like, holy cow, that's a lot of money. And I won't say what he was making on camera. You give him some anonymity there. But, I mean, it was more than what I was making in a week's time, And I'm like, so all you gotta do is shoot some videos and throw them up on YouTube? And he's like, yeah, pretty much. Of course, he wasn't telling me all the ins and outs of it, but, yeah, pretty much. Well, anyways, so that's how I kind of got the interest in YouTube or heard about it. Well, shoot, I can do that. And then I found out I had stage fright in front of a camera, and that it doesn't come that easy. So I decided not to be on camera personally, and my very first videos I ever did were highly edited with just music playing, and you never saw anything but my hands.
Yeah, or just pictures.
Working.
A lot of them were picture slideshows, too.
Or just picture slideshow kind of things.
Our very first 10 videos.
Yeah. And so I made my very first 10 videos that way. And I realized you didn't actually make that much money on YouTube that easily. It actually required a lot of videos and a lot of effort.
Yep.
And I was like, well, to heck with that. I can make more money elsewhere. And so I jumped off YouTube for about a year or so. Surprisingly, though, we gained about 740 subscribers in that year that I didn't post anything for over a year. Apparently somebody liked my videos out there. And then last February, we started taking it more seriously as a way for me to start promoting myself as an instructor and an educator in blacksmithing and start sharing my knowledge that I've learned from all these other great smiths and start passing that on to other people. And so therefore, it just kind of blossomed from there. And then, of course, there's money added to it, but I could sell like 2 extra bowls and make way more money than what we actually make on AdSense. So I could sell 2 extra items a month.
Yeah, that'd be the equivalent.
And it would be about the equivalency. So, so I do it to take and promote education of blacksmithing, to give back to the blacksmithing community, and just to spread the love. So.
Prescott Steve says you're going to make it big on YouTube, Roy.
Well, I don't know about that, but according to some of my comments, somebody said that they absolutely couldn't stand my rambling in one of my last videos on making a making a touch mark. But I don't know what else you would like to do. Watch me freeze for 41 minutes while I make you a video?
And silence.
And file in silence. I just can't watch those, so I have to talk. I'm a talker. So I ramble. And I'm rambling now. Alright.
Ready
Let's go
to
to the anvil, yep.
All right, here we go.
All right.
You got to hear Roy's storytelling side there for a couple of minutes.
Yep. So now we're going to come, once again, hang that little barbell edge over off the edge. We want to make sure that barb is nowhere close to being smashed. This part here. Now I'm definitely against the anvil. And we can definitely, hopefully they can see that. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. The slug?
No, actually it's all glowing really bright.
It's all glowing really bright. Well, anyways, you guys have seen that little trick before. So now I'm going to set it off here. If you don't have this, this is where an anvil block comes in handy. To get between two shoulders like this. There we go. Now we got the slug out. So I'll just go ahead and brush it up. I'll have to redress everything just so I can show everybody, but is it still blowing really great?
Nope,
glowing?
it's better now.
Okay. Just dress this down so everybody can see what happened. The result of what I was doing. Everybody see that really well?
Yep, that shows.
Okay, so now we remove that slug. Just like so. Now, this hole here you want to be oversize of whatever you think your bolt's going to be. Your bolt or your thread, your screw, whatever that's going to be, you want this hole to be oversized of that. And the reason for that, which we'll get into the setting up of the vise when we actually put it together, is because this part has to cant this way. It has to pivot. And so that means whatever you put through there has got to have room to pivot with it. Otherwise it'll bind. So, hope everybody likes that. So now the next step, we're going to go ahead and drift this open. Mm-hmm. So I got my little, so I punched the little slug out of there. Making sure not to waste as much material as possible. Let me see here. I'm not finding. I need to clean this place up. Ah, there we have it. Okay, here's a little stainless steel drift that I made. I'm not sure what this is. I know it's like I believe it's like a 440C stainless. I'm not 100% on that. Once again, it's scrapyard stainless steel. Not 100%. It was a long time ago that I bought it. I do know that it's a high carbon stainless because I was making a vine on somebody's bike one time. I was making a vine with stainless steel vines, and it cracked because it cooled it in water. It was really dumb. I just kind of smacked it. Anyways, long story. We won't go into it. Rambling. So, we're going to use a stainless steel drift. It holds up better than mild steel in this case. And it's a semi-tool steel. It doesn't rust.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make one out of it. So,
it's a good size for it.
We did. It's a good size. So we're going to drift that out.
Working with Iron says, am I late? Good evening, all.
Working with Iron, good to have you here. Definitely late. Couple hours.
Only an hour and 48 minutes.
Yeah, you can watch it on the replay if you want to. We are just drifting open the eye to the vise. The eye of the vise, that's what we're calling it.
Thomas Edwards says, how many times have you pointed out something that you're forging and burned your finger in the process?
Well, if I could feel it, a bunch.
But he can't feel it, so he has no idea. Let's see. Ben Aguilar says, I'm glad you're sharing videos and teaching others about blacksmithing because a lot of these arts have died out with the people that were blacksmiths.
Yeah, so, you know, the great thing is there's a lot of stuff, it's really making a comeback. You know, it has for a lot of years since the 70s, and so it's really coming back. You know, it's definitely getting more popularized now that we have the internet and there's more people who can find about it, more people can research it, things like that. So, you know, it's a kind of a cool time to definitely be a blacksmith. Mm-hmm. Especially like, you know, the channel here we have just a little over 12,700 or so subscribers, right?
Yep, just a little shy of 13,000.
Yeah, we're just a little shy of 13,000 subscribers. And that's just crazy to me that there's 13,000 people that have seen something that I've done as far as instructional wise, and hopefully they were inspired to go out and do some sniffing of their own. So.
Prescott Stoops says, I'm a good listener, so we make a great combo.
I'm a big talker, you're a great listener. That's good.
Chris Melick says, I come for the smithing, but stay for the rambling.
Good. Good. Well, you're definitely going to get that. So now, this is where working with something this small, it is really good to have a block, an anvil block again, a different kind that has a hole all the way through it as a backup. Because what I've got now and what you're going to find out is, so I have got a drift all the way through this piece, okay? I have to drift this drift all the way through this piece, but I do not have enough space between my two shoulders to straddle the anvil, so to speak. Okay, so this is where a block, an anvil block that has a hole all the way through it, is really handy to get between those shoulders. So the way I'm going to conquer this is I'm actually going to go to the vise jaws for this process, because I don't have the special tool to go in the anvil hardy hole or the anvil block. So we're going to go over to the vise jaws and we're going to drift this.
Alrighty.
You ready going?
Yep, ready.
Get my drift set up here.
Jay Sanders says, I copied your cattail for Christmas for my mother.
Cool. Hopefully she enjoyed it. So now I'm going to aim for the center approximately. Find my hammer. Should have had that already. Aim for the center again, because I didn't get it the first time. We want it to drift out in the center, don't we? We'll tighten this up so this way it's not so far away. Watching not to hit my... Watching not to hit this. We don't want to hit that piece. But now it's too cold. See, so you can't hit it there. But I'll be able to flip it over and hit it like that and not mess anything up. So I'm going to do the rest of my drifting the opposite way. So I'll go ahead and get that hot again. And then there's always cleanup after this. So there's always going to be some cleanup hammering. The closer you can go to forged finish without, the closer you can get it to a nice, even, smooth surface finish will save you hours of filing. So it'll save you hours of filing later. And I'll be the first to say there's a lot of really weird angles on this. It's not going to go to just the belt grinder. It's just not. There's too many weird, awkward areas on this, and it's very hard to grind it on the platen or even off the edge, and you take too much, you lost it, you lost all your forging hours. So
file it by hand.
Yeah, so it'll go to the file, which is really not that bad to file this thing. It's really not hard.
Jason Herbst says, would that be a swedge block?
A swedge block.
Yeah, you referred to an anvil with the hole in it.
No. An anvil block is what I'm talking about, and an anvil block, it's essentially just a block of steel that goes in the hardy hole of the anvil. And then, you can have stuff where it has radius edges on it. You can make it where it's got a cup in it, so it's like a cupping tool. Or you can make them where once again, it sits on the anvil, but it has a hole through it. And what it does is it allows you to get between two shoulders and drift something out. Like an axe eye or hammer eye that has big faces. It kind of stands it off, so this way you can drift it through. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Alright, going over the vise.
Okay.
Better take it over there.
Alright.
All right. Hopefully, and get that to fit. Keep everything off of there. We got that drifted. And I'm going to take it up just a little bit more with the bigger drift. There we go. Now I'm going to have some dressing up to do. You can see it kind of got a little wonky to one side. So I'll have to dress that up. And I'll show you how. Can everybody see that? There it is.
All right. Yep.
Alrighty. You have it.
All right, so the anvil to dress it.
Yep, I'll dress it with the
Okay.
anvil. I'm going to show them how to correct the wonkiness.
Can't have wonkiness.
Nope, don't want to have wonkiness. Alright. Any questions?
Let's see here. Let's see. Do you have one to show us? I believe they're asking about the vise.
Yeah, I do not have a small one. I have something I made in class, honey, right behind you. Grab it.
Yep.
Now this, like I said, I'm making a longer jaw, a longer neck in the vise to hold further in on pieces. But essentially, I am making this half here of the vise. Everybody see that?
Mm-hmm. It's in the shot.
So this is a much smaller version of this, and it's called a handheld vise or a frizzen vise, lockmakers, clockmakers vise, yada yada.
Brian Neely says wonkiness. Is that the technical term?
That is Roy's technical term for it, wonkiness. So, all right. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and just square everything up. So, you know, kind of just get everything, make sure everything's in plane before I adjust that little bit of wonkiness that's in there. So,
Okay.
I'll bring it out. And I'm just going to adjust like the shoulders and stuff.
Minka 12 says, hey, did somebody say something about Willy Wonka chocolates? Wonkiness.
Wonkiness. All right. All right. This is looking pretty well dressed. Move this out of my way. And this. Come over here.
Got Milk 1061 says, I guess in a vise you can't have wonkiness, but in a decorative piece I call it character.
Well, depending on how wonky it is, it's either character or it's still wonkiness. All right, we'll call that good.
Did you get it straightened?
Yeah, somewhat. Okay. So let's see here.
Really close.
Trying to get the camera to reset. And it won't. Okay. Anyways, hopefully you guys can see this. So if you can see, this side looks to be like it's kind of shifted forward, if you will. It actually needs to come back down this way it's just kind of running like this. There's a flat, but this side's really nice and puckered. Almost like this went more than what that side did. So the way we're going to correct that is actually fairly simple. So the way we're going to correct this is we're going to just make sure that this side is down in the fire and it is heating up more than this top side. So we're going to lay this on the fire and point this side down, being careful not to burn up our end here. And then when we go back and we hit and drift it, this side's going to stretch more and leave this side alone. Hopefully that makes sense.
Makes sense.
Okay? And then there's one other thing we can do to fix that. If there's any sort of offsetting to it, we can take and go to a Bic, set it on there, and we can tap back here or here, but mainly back here, and adjust the opening of that whole back square. Hopefully everybody got that. Makes sense.
Yeah. Prescott Stoop says, I'm liking the size of this vise. A lot less metal to move than a larger version.
Yep. Now, like I said, if you didn't want this long of a neck in here, just make this section here shorter. Just start with this section a lot shorter. If you remember, I started with 2" or 50 mil to my first dot and then drew it out, and then remember, I drew it out between that and left a mass on there. Maybe you only want to start with 25 mil. So start half of that, and then that would give you a really short vise jaw. But everything gets more compressed and harder to forge between those 2 points.
Steve S. says, it's beautiful and I really want to try making that big vise, but in the meantime, how about that little $35 one? Yeah, it's right down the road in West Alex, Ohio.
Yep, it's right down the road, West Alex, Ohio. I think they're called Old Treasures or Antiques or...
Yeah, they're right there on the main road.
Yeah, they're right there on the main road. There's only 2 antique shops. One of them's closed and the other one's open, so
yeah,
you can't miss it.
Jeff Doriso, what type of coal do you use?
I use a bimutamis coal. It's called a Pocahontas coal, I guess is what they call it. Comes out of Pennsylvania.
Prescott says, the long neck is good though, I think. Gives more room for projects.
Yep. The shorter it is, you're going to have more clamping pressure. But the shorter it is, the less dynamics you can get out of the piece that you're filing. And so for this particular thing, I want there to be some depth to it. So this way I can hold odd-shaped items in there really good and get my filing done the way I want it.
There was a question about the hammer handle from last week, if you got that done yet, from
Yes,
the giveaway
I did. We
hammer.
can show that too.
Yeah, yeah.
Show
Let
that
me
off
for you.
after I get this fixed. Yeah, bring it over. I'd show it off.
Okay.
It's
right
not
here.
hot yet, so there we go. So I got that all fixed up. There's the hammer we engraved in last week's demo.
What did it weigh? I don't know. Did you?
I haven't weighed it yet.
Not
So, but yeah, this is my 10,000 subscriber giveaway hammer. I know I'm almost at 13,000 now, but these things take time.
Better
but
late
yeah,
than never.
you guys can watch the video from last week. It's tied, live hammer engraving demo, and you can watch me do my engraving on this. Everybody was there and saw that. So this is essentially just a smaller replication of my main forging hammer that I use, with a little different side detail. But, yep, and then this has been charred. This is a charred hickory handle with boiled linseed oil finish. There you go. For those who need to know and salivatate any more about the hammer.
I think we have the real big Swede claiming it already.
Oh, he's already claiming it, huh?
Yeah.
Alright, I forgot to listen to my own instruction. So, I'm going to go ahead and cool off. Well, maybe I won't.
If you can get it through the frozen
There you
block
go.
of ice.
So I'm going to cool off the side that's more stretched already. Okay? And now I'm going to go ahead and drift again, but through the side that needs to be stretched. Sorry.
You're all right.
Should have gave you instruction on where to go. There we go. That evened it up.
Done it?
Yep.
Good.
What do y'all think? Even it up? Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it looks like it.
So, that straightened it all back out.
Perfect.
So now we'll straighten it up at the anvil. Put the final touchings on it. Remember, the more you do at the anvil in this case, the less file work you'll have to do. It's easier to forge something straight and square and clean if you just take a little bit of time at it than it is to have to, you know, file for a couple hours. And you got a lot of material you got to move. All right. So that is done. We'll go ahead and brush this up here.
Ryan Hillstill, hey, what about the 7,250th subscriber? Was that you? Sounds like you're keeping track of your location in our list.
That's funny.
That is. Iris Steele says, but if I don't have to file for hours, what will I do with all that time?
Make the other half.
Yeah, there you go. Or make a spare. Make a different size.
So this right here, unless I was going to do some engraving and some chasing work in it, I wouldn't even file it. I mean, it's pretty much a forged finish. And as you can tell, it looks pretty good. Or at least I think it does. What do you think, hon?
Yeah, I think it turned out very nice. Yeah, you got it straightened out and looks good.
So what does everybody think? Look good? Not bad for the first half?
Yep, awesome. Yes, looks great.
Yeah,
Roy.
good.
Looks fabulous. Looks half finished.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh. Yeah, so this is where getting good fundamentals in. All these processes here were all fundamental processes. None of this was advanced techniques. This was just a compilation of fundamental smithing. It would look really good in my shop. Maybe we'll do one of these one day as a giveaway. So I'm glad everybody likes that. So yeah, there we go. Good clean forging. That's what I'm about. So I'm pretty impressed with it. All right, enough gloating. Boom, look at that. 2 hours and 8 minutes.
Yep.
I slotted it out just right.
Hey, 70 people sticking with us too.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you all for being here. So before we go, so what I'm going to do, I will cut this off. I'm not going to cut it off right now. I'll let this cool naturally. But what I'll do is I'll actually cut this off now. I'll end up cutting it off, I should say, not cut it off now. Bad grammar. I'm going to end up cutting this off about right here to where I have just a little over 5/8 square, or 5/8 cube of material, or 16 mil cube of material. And the reason for that is we're going to have to take and lock this portion now in the vise, or hold it with the tongs and a hand hammer and kind of upset this material a little bit and push it a little more that way before we're totally finished with it. And what will happen is this piece here will become the tongue of the hinge joint, and the other piece will become the actual slot portion that this will fit into. So it'll have a much larger kick out this way on the next piece. So this way we can put a rivet through it, and it's going to essentially be a 3 thing. Let me explain this a little bit better than a 3 thing.
Gotta grab the shot.
So there's a couple ways you can make there's 1,000 different ways you make hinges, but essentially a hinge joint is any two pieces riding on one another, making a scissoring action. What we're needing to do, or what I'm doing with this, so this way I can maintain accuracy and not get any twisting, we're going to create a joint that looks like this, with a rivet through it. And what this will do for us, so this will be sawn in and filed to shape, and what this will allow us to do is it stops you from getting any twisting, left or right action. I don't know if anybody can see that.
Yeah, there you go. There's a glare coming from that light, so you can block it a little right there. There you go.
There?
Perfect.
Okay, so that will stop the piece from twisting or canting, left or right, when you get an uneven pressure in the jaw. So if something's kind of tapered a little bit, it won't twist at the rivet joint. If all you did was do a half lap rivet joint that looks like this, that is not as strong. So what you can do is when the jaw loads up with pressure, it'll want to pry this jaw away from this jaw easier. Hopefully that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So instead of doing a half lap, we're going to do, I don't even know what you'd call it, but essentially a full lap joint, I guess you'd call it.
An Easter Island head with ears.
Yeah, an Eastern Island head with ears. So
with iron calls it. How deep will the hinge be into the 2 lap size, says Irish Steel?
What's that?
How long?
I'm sorry, I'm too busy drawing.
Did you get distracted? How deep will the hinge be into the 2 lap side? How deep?
Sorry, I'm confused now.
Nose?
Anyways, the bigger the nose, this here, his nose of the Easter Island head of the hinge joint will be approximately a ½ an inch, or 12.5 mil.
Good.
So does that make sense, everyone? Sounds good? And conveniently enough, we're going to forge it out of the other end of the bar.
Perfect.
We'll see?
Yeah.
Right there. Boom.
Works out.
All right. I guess we're flipping around, so I'm done forging with that. I'm going to let this go cool here and just continue to set off the side of the fire. All right. I'm flipping around.
Yeah.
You both talk?
Yep, we can do that.
Like that.
Yep, flip. Button.
There we go.
There we go.
Hey there, everybody. Good to see y'all. Say hi, Jess.
Hi.
She's been behind the camera this whole time.
I have been.
Oh, sorry. Really cringy video footage here.
Got the oversized glasses.
Yeah. All right. So there you have it. All done with the first stage. So next time we're going to work on the second stage, which will be the rear portion of the jaw. It's going to be essentially the same process as the front portion for the first steps of the process, but it's going to differ when we come to the actual hinge portion itself. It's going to differ a little bit because it has to extend out just a little further to provide the right gap. And then it also has to have a hole in it, an additional slot, so this way we can take and rivet in our spring, because there's going to be a spring in here that allows it to open like so. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, so if everybody understood this portion here about drifting the hole oversized to what you would ever need for a bolt to go in here, so it has room to move this way and that way, that's why if you look at a lot of vices, they have this look here. This isn't perfectly round, and it's not like really tight to the screw or to the screw box, but it's like very open. It's kind of like really loose and janky like. And the reason for that being is as the vise moves this way, it has to tilt. And if the hole was tight, it wouldn't be able to tilt like that. And so that's why they left it all like that. And you usually see spacers and like washers, and that stops the jankiness, or you know, the whatever happening.
Wonkiness or...
The wonkiness.
There you go.
It stops the wonkiness from happening. Janky, wonky, whatever you want to call it. No. So anyways, so next week's live stream, we're going to continue on this little process. If there's any Smiths out there that are willing to take up this challenge, go for it. I'd love to take and hear about it. Share your experiences with others and follow along this process. And then that way, in next live stream, everybody can have... gotta get you in the camera, sorry. That way in the next live stream, if you have any questions about what we're doing, since we're essentially going to be recapping that first part, I can answer whatever questions you may be having or any problems or issues that you may be having, and hope to do that on some other live streams and start going kind of that route with the live streams, and hopefully everybody will like that. Everybody give me a thumbs up if you guys like this. Working with Iron, I definitely like to see that. Working with Iron's got a YouTube channel too. I'd love to see what he comes up with as well. Yep, you get to see me do the hinge, the whole process. I'm going to do the whole process and explain each step very well along the way. Probably I'm going to try to keep everything to 2 hours at max for the demonstration portion of it per step. That's a lot of work to get done in 2 hours. So if anybody wants, like I said, if anybody wants to join in on this and post their results, I love to see the creativity come out of everybody. And if you like this kind of video in the future for live streams specifically, just let me know. Like I said, comment on the comment section on the replay of this video. Say, give me a bunch of thumbs up or yes, let's do more videos like this. And I like to teach, so that's what I'm here for. Anyway, so, all right, enough of me rambling.
Okay. Oh, yeah, Graham asked...
You ramble.
Yes, okay. Graham asked if I made the meat skewers yet. I have not. Except for coming out to the shop to help with the live streams for the last 2 weeks. That's about all I've been out here so far. As far as things that I'm trying to get done right now, trying to wrap up a few things for the end of the year. Some of Roy's projects that he's finished during the month of December. I am trying to take the photographs from that I've taken and prepare them and add them to our listings to kind of update some listings and make some new listings as well. And we have like a portfolio, website portfolio that I have to update as well. So that's some of the things that I've been up to.
Oh, good. So I'll answer a few things real quick. You're awesome too, working with Iron. Cheers from the U.S., obviously. Let's see here. Somebody also asked, thoughts on making it from rebar? You could definitely do that. Rebar is kind of weird on its grading systems. Don't know a lot about it. You could, if you have the rebar, you may want to try to beat out or grind out some of the rebar look, unless that's what you're wanting. Yep. Jess has to forge some stuff too.
Yep. When I do get those meat skewers, Roy's
goodbye, Prescott Stoops. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Roy said he's gonna film me when I do get around to doing those meat skewers, which will have to be sooner than later, probably. So,
yeah, a lot sooner than later.
Get out here and do
Considering, guess what? Next week's live stream, we're going to be giving those away to one lucky subscriber.
So yeah, that gives me a time crunch, I guess.
Yep. So, say aluminium. I don't know why you want to say that. Aluminum?
Maybe.
Aluminum?
Hi, Roman. We're still here.
Yep. We're still here. We're just finishing up, so you'll have to watch all the rest of my jargon on the replay. We'll definitely let everybody know whose address we'll ship it to.
Let everybody know.
Yeah.
Okay,
let everybody know.
Everybody?
Yeah. There you go. She just make them for everybody. So no, we probably won't do that stuff. Great stuff. Makes me laugh is all. Yep. Aluminum. Yep. Aluminum. Yeah. I know. Us darn Americans.
Ohioans.
So done. Yeah, darn Ohioans. So anyways.
It's funny. We think we don't have an accent until we hear people from other parts of the U.S.
Yeah. And then we realize we have an accent of some sort. So anyways. So, all right. we're going to get off here.
Yep.
Thank you all for watching this video. Make sure to comment in the replay of this video when it produces it as an actual video where you can watch it again on the playback. Make sure to comment what you like about this video and if you'd like this more in the future in 2018. I know I'm going to be doing several like this in the future and to really make some really cool stuff. So, Merry Christmas to everybody.
Yep.
If we didn't say it on our last stream,
yep.
Belated Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to everyone. And yeah, next time we get to talk to everybody,
it'll be 2018.
It'll be 2018. So, we'll see you all in 2018. So, God bless you all. You guys have a great night. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.